The goal of this chat is to understand the differences between privacy and security, as well as understand what both concepts really are. In that context, it's important to note why we are concerned about privacy and, frankly, why we're speaking about it and you're listening to someone speak about it today. And that really comes down to the fact that we live in an increasingly information-driven culture that is also getting and becoming more and more connected every day. And the net result of that is that protecting information both from people who legally have it and appropriately have it, as well as people who want to try to get it to do nefarious things with it, is of critical importance to a number of different key stakeholders, as we'll see. In other words, these issues matter, and they matter in a number of contexts. We care about them as individuals. We care about them looking at it from the perspective of public and private organizations, so both private sector companies as well as the governments. We care about them as a society, as we'll see, particularly with privacy. It is somewhat of a cultural norm that different societies come to different conclusions about. And as we see with the increasing interconnectivity, we care about this as a world community. There are going to be different cultural and societal norms regarding privacy, certainly, in the world, and trying to make those mesh and understand everyone's perspective on those is of more and more importance every day. When we speak of privacy, it really is a societal norm, sometimes contained in laws, that expresses limitations over the collection, protection, processing, and deletion of information regarding an individual. The primary focus of privacy really is about what an authorized person or entity lawfully does with this information regarding an individual. There's a couple of key points in this slide that are worth noting. Unlike security, privacy is focused on protecting information regarding an individual. So a company's own information, as we'll talk about, would not really be within the scope of privacy. And both security and privacy really do focus on protecting information, but it's really the difference there is who it is being protected from. Privacy, to me, really focuses on, again, what a person who lawfully has information does with it. So there are restrictions on what you can do with certain forms of information. There's restrictions on collection of certain forms of information, but it is not a situation where someone has stolen information and is trying to misuse it. I think that's a critical distinction when we really conceptualize privacy and security, particularly regarding the protection element of it. Processing certainly has it sounds much more in privacy, as we'll see in future slidecasts. And deletion can be both a security and a privacy concept, but again, we're focused on a smaller data set in some ways, which is deletion of personal information or information regarding an individual. And we're also really looking at a company's deletion program and how it's doing that in certain ways. Security is both broader and narrower, and as I just noted, the data set it focuses on isn't limited to just data regarding an individual. This could be confidential information regarding a company, its pricing, proprietary formulas, undisclosed M&A activity, any number of different things, as we'll talk about in future discussions. The main focus, and this is again where security and privacy differ, there's an acronym which is CIA, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability for security, and that's also important. So there is a confidentiality component, which is keeping it out of the wrong people's hands, but there's a data integrity component, making sure the data is accurate and that the data is available. And that is not as much of a privacy concept as it is a security concept. And again, when we look at confidentiality, it's protecting information or information systems, as we'll see, from third parties who shouldn't have the ability to access those. The distinction matters because, candidly, if you combine the two, it gets difficult sometimes to understand where one issue ends and where one begins, and how programs should function in companies and how regulation should work. Privacy is a distinct concept. It certainly is related to security, but again, what you would do to implement a security program is fundamentally different in many ways than what you would do to implement a privacy program. When we look at this in the future, we will really examine key steps to implementing both programs and both forms of programs, privacy and security, and really draw these distinctions out in the future. But as we do move into a more interconnected society, we do need to be aware that privacy and security both have critical roles to play, but they are related but distinct roles.